Hello and good afternoon, everybody out there watching us from home. Welcome to this week's episode of Author Reads here on Friday. I'm your host, Fairy Princess Lolly, and today I am here with, is it Lamont? I only Lamonte. Okay,
yes, ma'am.
that is actually how I originally read it, but I didn't know if I was saying that right in my head because I often read words wrong. So.
Understand completely. And I don't have the thingy over the E, so
Yeah, well, that's a weird thing to have to type. So, before we jump into things, I just want to ask you all, please, if you're watching from home, hit the like and subscribe button for us. And to let you guys know that today's show is sponsored by Mythological Taxidermy. And you may have actually seen them because they've been here on the channel for our handmade home shopping segment. And they have incredible hand sculpted figures of all kinds. But today they have sent me this cool dragon friend to show you as one of the things that they have. This little guy, and he wraps around. He's fully posable and bendable, but I'm not very good at doing it one-handed, so I wasn't much able to get him on my wrist without help, let alone a shoulder or something to that effect. Super cute though. It's kind of like a pink and purple. Who am I looking for? The dragon movie. The black dragon. Yeah, How to Train Your Dragon. Yes, thank you. But also, the purchase came with this, which was really cool, which was a little dragon wrap bracelet adoption card. And I thought that was a little great bonus. So they create unique artwork that is inspired by creatures from pop culture and mythology, and selling one-of-a-kind dragons, mandrakes, flying keys, and other fantastical creatures. They love to figure out new techniques and how to use unconventional materials to make their pieces. And you can actually really see this reflected. Their information is going down there in the low bar and is also on the ticker, so you can find them at any time. And they've been creating faux taxidermy. I mean, it's real. I'm touching it, right? And sculpture for many years. And they have sold their artwork at Comic-Cons, Renaissance fairs all around the U.S. So one of their pieces was even selected to be shown at Disney in the D23 Expo in 2019. So that's pretty amazing. And they are running a sale right now in their store for 10% off on all items that are $30 or more. Please check them out. Their information is there, again, in the ticker, and their links are in the low bar. If nothing else, you can give them a follow on Instagram. So they do have really great work. And with that said, then here we go with the show today. You guys, if you're watching from home, we will be talking here a little bit. We'll have a 20 to 30 minute read, and then we will do the drawing I'll take questions during that time from the audience, and then we'll do the drawing for the free book at the end of the show. So Lamonte, yeah. I'm wondering now if I can actually change that. I'm wondering if I can change that. I think I might know the little code for that E. Here we go. Oh, that's a French E. Let's try it again. Nope. Nope. I can only get that. Let's see. Oh no. Let's see.
130.
No. I'm over here trying to get the special little E.
Hey, you know what? This just makes me feel special, so I'm cool.
I have the one with the little French thing above it, but not the. That's okay. We'll get you back up there. So, Lamonte Valentine, please, if you will, introduce yourself to the audience, say hello, and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you write.
Absolutely. Hi, guys. My name is Lamonte. I also go by my pen name, LD Valentine, because sometimes people struggle with my first name. Ha ha ha. I am a DC-based nerd who just loves living life and loves enjoying myself with all of my nerdly vices. In regards to what I write urban fantasy, queer YA fiction, because while YA fiction is absolutely saturated, almost none of it is queer, and what it is around a very, we'll say, particular audience. And the queer experience is so much more than just that one subset. So I decided, what the heck, I'll just give it a try. Hence my book, Rising.
All right. And so this is your first book then?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
and so what is the subject matter of the book? Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to hear?
Sure. So the book surrounds 8 individuals, 6 of whom are just your normal everyday guys who figure out that they're witches. And when they are brought to this very clandestine organization, Zora, they're kind of told, so hey, witches used to be a thing. You guys were demon slayers, hence is what we do here. Welcome to your new life. Right, and essentially it is a story about queer witches kicking demon ass, but there's a lot more going on with that. Right now this book is from one of the main characters' point of view, Xavier. Every book will have a different main character POV, and it's essentially them kind of initially getting their feet wet, understanding what it means to live their new life, and kind of reconciling themselves to the fact that what once was their lives is different,
Different.
changed.
Understatement, probably.
A little bit, there's some, they're being adaptable, what's a fireball between two people? What?
A fireball between two people. Woo! Well, I mean, it could be about a shot, right?
It could. Yes, it could. I mean, and honestly, it's an unabashedly queer coming into your new destiny story. And, that's what I really went out of my way to really go forth and give to people, because you have a lot of people who are just like, behold, I have summoned a gay. And it's like, no, let's just give people what they actually are, shall we?
So did you publish this year during a quarantine, or did you publish last year?
I published this year. My book came out in April of this year.
Oh gosh, like right at the beginning, practically.
Right at the beginning. It had been planned since the former year, because I turned in my manuscript, and my publisher, bless her heart, Debbie, if you're seeing this, she went through the song and dance of just going over the final edits and whatnot, and we decided on this date because it gave her enough time to do what she needed to do. And then around like February, kind of just understood that, hey, book tours and going out and selling the books at cons and whatnot, not going to happen. Not today. Maybe next year.
Speaking of which, though, we do have Super Chat enabled. So if you're watching from YouTube and you folks want to support Lamonte literally live during the show, you can hit the Super Chat button, and your donations and tips will go straight to him. So that is always an option for you guys out there. And as well as all of the links, of course, in the low bar for where to buy his book. But without much further ado, with regards to that, I feel like my camera is being wonky here. But without much further ado with regard to that, then are you ready to do a read here, do you think?
I absolutely am.
All right, I'm going to turn the whole screen over to you, and I will put myself on mute, but I will be in the background and in the audience comments, and I will be taking questions from anybody in the audience during your reading time. And then when you're done, I will come back and we will ask the questions.
Absolutely.
All right, here you go.
All right, boys and girls and everybody in between, let's go on a ride. Why? Why did you agree to this? Justin screamed, sidestepping a tree as he ran. Like I had a choice, Xavier screamed back, looking behind him to see their pursuer was still on their tail. I wasn't asked so much as I was voluntold. Just as Soraya had promised, their Paragon training had begun at the top of the following week. The first exercise was to escape Beatrice in her panther form, using nothing except their magic. It wasn't until Justin cast a spell that they realized Beatrice had Sakia cast a spell that prevented direct magical attacks. One hungry-sounding growl later, they were all running through a nearby forest. Xavier ordered everyone to pair off and split off. As such, Beatrice decided that chasing Justin and him was the best choice. You won't be beating me anytime soon if all you do is run, Beatrice hollered, announcing she was only a short distance behind them. Xavier glanced back at the leaves and pebbles on the ground. Levitate, he barked, and his targets rose in a very unusual cloud. As Beatrice came into view, he pointed at her and shouted, shoot. The rocks got to her first, colliding with enough force to be heard. Next came the twigs and the stakes, which managed to trip their target. The leaves didn't do much, but Xavier really didn't care at that point. Justin came up behind him and pointed, "In case." The leaves that Xavier had thought were useless clung to Beatrice's body, leaving only the bottoms of her paws exposed. Knowing that wouldn't hold her long, Xavier ran in the opposite direction, followed closely by Justin. "Got any ideas?" Justin panted. "Yeah, a couple. Isn't there a river near here? Encasing her in water won't work. She'll just use her shadows. She'll still be wet." "What the? Got it." They continued running until they reached the small river. As they ran towards the water, Xavier caught sight of the shadow on his left and pushed Justin out of the way. Beatrice landed in the water and flicked her tail in annoyance. "That was lined up perfectly, too. Guess your reaction time has gotten a bit better. All right, let's get this over with, unless you plan on using more twigs and leaves, which, by the way, itches something awful." "Justin," Xavier said coolly. "Really? Encasing me in water will literally hold me all of 2 seconds. "No need for that," Xavier smirked. Justin, who had managed to get to the water without being harassed, poked a finger beneath the surface and said, "Generate." Beatrice's eyes grew wide as Justin's current of electricity hit her. Unfortunately, a scream from behind them revealed that Max was also in the water. Justin quickly withdrew his finger and grimaced, but a low growl reminded them that the task was not done. "Gonna need more than a few volts to bring me down. Not for Max, though. Poor guy. I don't like it when my fur is frizzed, so I'll be nice and give you a 2-minute break while I fix it." Xavier and Justin took off without a word and headed toward where they had heard Max scream. They found Nate carrying Max in his arms. Max looked incredulous. "You couldn't give any warning before you electrified the river?" "In their defense, Max, you were gonna freeze it," Nate said. Max turned and glared at Nate before addressing Xavier again. "My lower body won't move, and we can't hang around here. I'd say we go invisible, but you can't cast that." "It's still a good idea. Go invisible and find Adam. He can heal you. I'll be a distraction." Justin shook his head. "That is the single dumbest idea I've heard. But I can't think of anything else to do right now. So come here." Xavier walked over and Justin placed a finger on his sternum. He muttered "improved," followed by "enhance." The sensation was extraordinary. Xavier felt his muscles harden, while his lungs seemed to swell with the freshest air he had ever breathed. These spells don't last long, and they leave you twice as tired. Don't waste them. You got 15 minutes. Beatrice's growl announced that she was done fixing her fur. Xavier didn't even wait and ran towards her. In fact, he nearly ran into her as he hadn't adjusted for the additional boost in speed. He dodged to the right and let out a whoop of joy, and Beatrice took off right after him. Xavier had the impression that she was happy, though the feline face made it truly impossible to tell. They ran through the forest, engaged in the strangest session of cat and mouse he had ever seen. He saw 2 large trees that pointed to each other. "Break," he shouted, hoping he was casting the spell right. Much to his relief, 2 enormous cracks appeared in the trunks of the trees, and they toppled in his direction. He put more effort into his legs and made it just past them as they fell. With a yelp, Beatrice leaped out of the way. Xavier took the chance to jump up to a nearby tree. Astonishingly, his first jump took him almost 60 feet in the air, and from there, he jumped from tree to tree, feeling like one of those characters from an anime Nate showed him one time. He looked down and saw Beatrice was right on his tail. She could easily have climbed the trees like him, but she probably refused to rake him breaking whatever branch she was on. It wasn't long before he found exactly what he'd actually been looking for. Prior to this training exercise, he'd viewed a map of the forest and then cast a mapping spell himself. He had located a nearby cave and made a mental note of it. Now that he was being pursued, the cave afforded a perfect opportunity. He looked down again. Beatrice was nowhere to be found. He smiled and continued his tree jumping until he arrived at the cave. It was on the side of a modest cliff, and vines and moss had lined the outside of it. Xavier had guessed an earth witch had created it in the past. With care, he entered the cave. The side effects from Justin's spells were setting in, and Xavier felt like he'd run the entire day without stopping. His breathing became more labored, and his legs turned lead-like. He took a few more tentative steps and tried to quiet his breathing so he could listen. Considering how tired he was, he couldn't afford to be wrong about his hunch. A low growl assuaged his fears, and he stopped walking. "Looks like you beat me here," he huffed, his lungs really starting to burn. "I saw it a few yards off. Just didn't think you'd be dumb enough to go for it. I have night vision, you know." "I do, actually." Xavier closed his eyes. "Illuminate." Despite his eyes being closed, he could sense how bright the ball of light was and felt a twinge of guilt when Beatrice gave a howl of agony. He canceled the spell and ran as fast as he could towards the entrance. He got outside and turned to run down the nearby path. Unfortunately, his legs couldn't handle the sudden shift in direction and buckled. The cave didn't look that high off the ground when he was in the trees, but now that he was essentially falling down the cliff, he could see it was a lot higher than he expected. He tensed and braced himself for what he was sure would be a painful landing. "Slow," a familiar voice called. Xavier jerked painfully, and he turned to see Danny looking up at him. In seconds, Xavier had landed in Danny's arms. He was surprisingly solid and held Xavier with ease. He thanked him for the save, but feeling awkward, quickly freed himself of Danny's hold, instantly regretting his haste when his legs gave out. Danny grabbed Xavier's arms and hooked him around his shoulder. "Where are the others?" Xavier asked, the exertions really starting to take their toll. "Close. What hurts worse?" Danny asked, leading Xavier away from the path. "Legs. Save your strength, just in case this doesn't work." "What doesn't?" A scream, part human, part animal, rang out as Beatrice shot out of the cave and crouched on the ledge, scanning the area until she had located them. With a snarl, she leapt off the edge directly at them, rage dancing a morbid tango across her face. Xavier grinned. For the first time in a long time, he actually felt like he was good at something. He had put thought into a plan, and despite being the result of a questionable decision to be the bait, Beatrice had played into his hands beautifully. "Pin," he whispered. 3 basketball-sized rocks flew off the ground and slammed into Beatrice, pinning her to a nearby tree. The rocks would hurt, but Xavier was confident they wouldn't break anything. The purpose of this exercise was to force them to think creatively in their use of magic, so Beatrice had no right to complain. Danny gave a small snort of laughter, which was answered with an annoyed snarl. The others arrived, and Adam rushed over to Xavier, while Justin and Nate went to check on Beatrice. "I have to say, Xavier," Justin said, looking at the placement of the rocks, "you're stupid lucky." "Actually, from the moment I played bait, this was all planned. Although Danny catching me because I fell off the cliff was super lucky," Xavier admitted, relief spreading through his body thanks to Adam's ministrations. "Not bad, bro," Nate said. "Miss Beatrice, I don't want to sound cocky, but I think we have this one." Beatrice, who had been struggling against the rocks, stopped what she was doing and looked at Nate. "How do you figure?" "The idea was to contain me. Even if one of you picks up the spells, you guys can't keep this up forever." "Oh, that's totally true," Justin said, smiling triumphantly. "But what happens when Nate and I gather dirt particles and expose them to the appropriate amounts of pressure to manipulate and increase the shape of those rocks into something a little more confining?" Beatrice let out a bark of laughter. "Xavier isn't strong enough to hold the spell that long. Now run along and get. I was having fun chasing you." Everyone turned to Xavier, whose only response was to look Beatrice in the eye and grin. Beatrice started laughing again. "Well, I'll be damned. Guess you figured if you can't cast complicated spells, you'll make the simple ones stronger. All right, you brats, you win. But don't get too proud of yourselves because..." A gust of wind buffeted everyone, and Eliot appeared next to the tree that Beatrice was pinned to. "You're not done with today's training," she told them smugly, smiling when they all groaned. She looked Beatrice over. "Hello, my love. I have to say, I don't like this look on you too much." "You're hilarious. Now explain the next part so they can put me down." Xavier released the spell, and Beatrice fell to the ground, resuming human form. He was surprised at how many visible bruises she had, a sentiment shared by Eliot. "You let them bang you up this much?" They hit me with rocks like 4 times, and this one decided to blind me in a cave and then encase me in leaves. Crafty little. I see. Well then, gentlemen, the next part of your training is to catch me. You may not use magic or your weapons. You must use your powers. As soon as the last word left her lips, she vanished and reappeared on Beatrice's other side. Xavier looked to the ground where she was and noticed an abundance of vines and frost. Well done, you two. But it's a little rude to cut someone off when they're explaining things to you. Since you finished up with B a lot sooner than expected, I want to see if you can do it again. For every 15 minutes that you haven't captured me, I will counterattack. I'll start with a push and progress from there. I'd say you have an hour before I drop you like flies. Good luck. And with a small nod, she disappeared again. Beatrice stretched and chuckled. You guys better get moving. Ellie's blows feel like a truck. Got any vice? Nate asked hopefully. Wait 15 minutes so you can see how she attacks. It'll hurt, but it won't put you on your butts. A circle of shadows appeared under her, and she sank into them with a smile and a wave. She was gone. What do you think, Xavier? Max asked. I'm inclined to agree with her, but that doesn't mean we do it blindly. I know Justin and I are flight certified, but what about the rest of you? I hate heights, Nate grumbled. I'm afraid of heights, Max squeaked. I got one for mine next week, but I pretty much have the hang of it, Adam said. I just finished a few days ago, Danny offered. Our flight instructor is a jerk. Xavier snickered, although he agreed. The flight instructor was an ornery eagle shifter who accepted nothing less than absolute obedience. Any deviation from his instructions resulted in a swift smack in the back of the head with a stick he named Mr. Obey. All right, Danny. When it gets closer to 15 minutes, get in the air and watch. You process information a lot faster than the rest of us do. Nate, can you create small bumps in the ground? Like, not big enough to be generally seen, but enough to feel? Max frowned at Xavier. She's going to be moving too fast for that to work. Not necessarily, Justin said, inspecting the area near the tree where Beatrice had been pinned. With her hitting us, she has to slow down to prevent herself from killing us. The problem is we don't know how fast she can actually move. Judging from the way the ground looks over here, it's ridiculously fast. Soraya had said something like that, Xavier recalled, which earned an approving nod from Danny. Her top speed is closely guarded, but I stumbled across a video of her breaking the sound barrier like it was nothing. Nate let out a low whistle. For a shifter to be able to withstand speeds like that is amazing. The air friction alone would set most people on fire. Well, her speed isn't that uncommon in Zor's history, Max said knowledgeably. Most of your prey-type shifters develop the speed improvements. Rabbits, deers, horses, to name a few. They discussed a few other options, and then their 15 minutes was up. Danny shot into the air into the nearby tree, and the rest of them gathered in a circle with their backs to one another. When Justin told them he'd heard the sound barrier break in the distance, Xavier tensed and readied 2 fireballs in his hands. Eliot struck Nate first and sent him flying into Justin. She had to slow herself down to be seen, which Adam had capitalized on, and pointed a clawed hand in her direction. Eliot let out a gasp and stopped moving, the pain showing on her face. Xavier felt his skin crawl. Adam had developed his ability to manipulate the water molecules in a person's body to such a degree that he could stop someone like Eliot, and Xavier hated every second of it. Adam would never use that technique on him again, but seeing it still made his stomach turn. Justin, trap her! She's vibrating and it's getting hard to maintain a lock on her, Adam hissed through his clenched teeth. Soraya does something similar, and I can shake her off. You'll be no different, Eliot growled. Justin lifted his hands, and a bubble of whim formed around Eliot. Xavier blinked, and she had disappeared. Something in him told him to produce his heat shield, and the moment he did, he felt a hand collide with his shoulder. The impact wasn't as bad as he thought it would be, but it still sent him barreling along the ground. He rolled back on his feet and shot a fireball in the direction he thought Eliot was headed, which was towards Max, as he was the easiest to move. She deviated course, and the fireball hit a nearby tree. Max used the distraction to surround himself in a cocoon of ice. Eliot's face contorted in annoyance, but she adjusted course again and sped off back into the forest. Danny landed next to Max's ice cocoon and knocked on it to alert Max that she had gone. Xavier shook his head and rolled his eyes. So, you guys want my honest opinion or one of those white lies that make you feel better? Danny had asked. We're not going to catch her, Adam guessed, putting out the fire that Xavier had caused. Not with a frozen scaredy cat over there, Nate joked. I panicked, okay? Max crossed his arms. You can face down a gargoyle with no issue, but the deer lady terrifies you, Justin said. In his defense, she is kind of scary. Xavier instantly rubbed his knuckle. Whenever I mess up on a recipe or a technique, she hits my hand with a wooden spoon. Pretty vicious. Our real issue, Nate cut across, giving Xavier a smirk, is that if we use the type of power we need, we'll destroy this forest. As your duly appointed tree hugger, I can't let that happen, especially Sir Firestarter over there. Smokey the Bear is going to snipe you if you're not careful. All right, point taken. There's an empty plain about a click south of here. The ground will be pretty messed up, but overall damage will be minimal. Okay, that's a little over half a mile. How do we get there without being attacked by Elliot? Xavier pointed toward the sky, to which Nate vigorously shook his head. Dude, no, such a bad idea. We kind of have no choice. And I figured you could just create a rock big enough to hold you and Max. It's easy. And it looks stupid. Wait, are you honestly throwing a fit because you have to stand on something to fly? Nate looked in the other direction, mumbling, everybody else could just fly through the air. Xavier rolled his eyes so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. Get over it. Max needs a ride. Although, he turned to Max, you need to learn how to fly properly too. But for now, let's get in the air. Nate mumbled something in Spanish that Xavier thought was probably an insult and walked over to Max, leading him a few feet away from the others. He lifted his hand and the ground shook briefly, and then with a loud crack, a large patch of ground started to lift, and the two of them rose into the air on what looked like a large boulder. As they rose, Max buried his head in Nate's chest and clung to him. Both Danny and Justin glared at Xavier as they too lifted off the ground to follow. Excuse me. Xavier huffed an exasperated sigh, and Adam laughed at him as finally they rose into the air as well. It had taken Xavier 2 full weeks to master flying, but the moment he did, he was elated. He loved the way the air felt on his skin. Maybe it was how free he felt when he was up there, but something about flying always made him smile in delight. A few hundred feet up, the empty plane he had talked about came into view. Still acutely aware of the glares he was receiving from Danny and Justin, he sped off, hoping to get everyone on the ground and out of each other's arms as soon as possible. As they traveled, Xavier saw movement below him, and then something hit his shoulder. Justin flew in front of him and generated a sphere of air large enough to engulf everyone, which several rocks collided with. You let that one hit me on purpose, Xavier grumbled, clutching his now stinging shoulder. You deserved it, Justin grunted. How can she throw things at such a high velocity from all the way down there? Adam lifted his hand and an orb of water formed around Justin's windshield. Max looked up from Nate's chest long enough to freeze the orb, except for a small spot that Xavier could see out of. Despite being defended by 2 levels of protection, small rocks still pierced through. We're almost there. Danny, grab Max. Nate, the moment we land, we need a rock wall, Xavier ordered. Danny flew over to Max and practically leaped into his arms. Max wrapped his arms and legs around Danny, who turned very red. Nate started to snicker uncontrollably, as did Adam. A collision of several rocks with the shield saved Xavier the trouble of having to yell at them to focus. As they touched down on the plane, Justin and Max opened a hole at the bottom of their sphere. Nate sped out and landed with so much force that a small crater formed. He lifted his hands and a circle of rocks nearly 30 feet high had erupted from the ground. Once they were safely down, Justin dropped his shield. After convincing Max to finally let go of Danny, he followed suit. Xavier turned to Nate to congratulate him on how quickly he erected the wall, but faltered at the intensity of Nate's expression. Nate? Nate shook his head to shush him. Growing a crap ton of weeds around the wall. Hopefully they'll trip her up. Don't push it. I'm fine, bro. Nate's face finally relaxed and everyone spread out, ensuring they had enough room to fully utilize their powers. The silence that followed was unbearably tense. They would hear her coming, but that didn't mean that she would have enough time, that they would have enough time to react. I can read, guys, I promise. A few more minutes of silence passed, and Xavier heard a faint noise coming from his left. He ducked as Eliot's fist swung, slicing through the air his face had occupied just a moment ago. Xavier leaped back and launched a tirade of fireballs in her direction. She dodged all of them and sped towards Justin. Justin waited until the last second before he ducked, simultaneously twisting and kicking her in the stomach. While the kick didn't look like it struck that hard, a gust of wind signaled Justin had coupled his powers with his strike. Eliot wheezed and flew backward. Nate walked into her flight path, seeds in his hand. Xavier saw a glint in Eliot's eyes, which stoked a mighty panic in him. "Move! It's a trap!" he screamed. Eliot's face switched from confident to angry as Nate raised a smaller rock wall. She backflipped and landed on the ground just short of the wall before speeding off. Xavier's mind raced as he desperately tried to figure out what Eliot's attack pattern was. Realizing she was trying to cripple the team instead of defeating them outright, he turned and hollered for Adam to be careful. No sooner than the words had left his mouth, he saw Eliot run past him with a huge smile on her face. He cursed. It was a feint, and she launched a blow at Max. With a crack of lightning, Danny appeared in front of Max and blocked her attack. "You really think you can keep up with my speed?" she laughed, taking a fighting stance. "Long enough for them to bring you down," Danny growled. "If you don't electrocute them first." Danny blinked and both disappeared. Several cracks of lightning were the only way he could keep track of where they were. He was impressed Danny could move his body that fast for so long, but when a lightning bolt hit the ground a few feet from him, he knew the fight couldn't continue for much longer. "Max," he called. Max had been watching the fight, looked, but ran over, sidestepping another stray lightning bolt. "What? How quickly can you throw down a flash freeze?" "I can't, Xavier. We would all be—" "I didn't ask you that," Xavier snapped, causing Max to jump. He took a breath and reined in his tone. "How fast?" "If I concentrate and don't hold back, milliseconds." "Guys!" Xavier signaled directions for everyone to levitate a few inches off the ground, which they immediately did. Xavier nodded at Max, who crouched close to the ground. "Danny!" Xavier yelled. Danny and Xavier suddenly appeared in front of them. Danny looked worse for wear, bleeding from his nose and head and breathing hard, while Eliot simply looked winded. Max slammed his hands into the ground, and a torrent of cold air shot forth, freezing everywhere it went. Both Eliot and Danny jumped in the air. Eliot turned in time to see Xavier kick her in the stomach. As his foot made contact, he ignited a small explosion. She would have shot backward, but Danny moved and caught her. A flash of lightning and a brutal scream later, Eliot lay twitching. Nate landed on the ground and gradually falling ground, and locked her in a rock cocoon. "Do we win?" Xavier asked, knowing she wasn't nearly as hurt as she was acting. Eliot looked up and smiled. Next thing, she was standing next to him, giving her hair a few tentative touches. "I suppose I'll let you guys have this one. You certainly did more than I expected. Danny should have shocked me harder if he really wanted to put me out of commission. I didn't know how quickly you'd heal and didn't want to risk actually killing you," Xavier explained, holding on to Adam for support while Adam healed him. "Well, that's fair. Well, boys, your first day of initial training is over. There's a cabin east of here. Xavier knows where it is. I do. You will sleep there for the night. I would suggest you spend the remainder of the day discussing a battle strategy. Let me guess. We'll have to fight Sakia using nothing but hand-to-hand, and then we fight Soraya after that," Xavier said, hoping only one of his guesses was accurate. "You are correct, and if I may be frank, you had better bring your best. We have all trained under Soraya, but none quite so closely as Sakia. She's gonna hold back, but not by much. Good luck, gentlemen." And that's the reading, as I have hit my time.
All right, I am here. I am coming back in. Yes. So, well, thank you so much for reading that. That was action-packed. Holy smokes. Is that like the very beginning of the book?
That's towards the middle, but I will say that level of action is present throughout the entirety of the book, because actions can sometimes be really nice in between all these narrative moments, you know?
Yes, that is definitely true. So we do have
Absolutely.
some questions from the audience. And let me go and find these really quick. I'm going to take this down. Let's see. I have to scroll up here a little bit. And
yes.
Question number 1 is, this is a fun one. Okay. I think they typoed your name, but what is your favorite underappreciated
that's a difficult
novel?
one. I know.
So start out with the hard ones first.
I'm gonna say The Last Unicorn. Even though it did get its own movie by Rankin and Bass, it is still kind of one of those very niche gems. And, you know, that's just the movie. The book that inspired the movie, even less so. But the book is really interesting, and the characters are fun. So definitely go for that one.
Kind of like the Neverending Story as well. The book is quite different than the movies. So in The Last Unicorn book, is it still as sad of an ending as it is?
Yeah, I mean, you get a little,
movie?
you get a little extra something, but it's the same feel.
Let's see. Okay, so we have, as a writer, what would you choose as your mascot, avatar / spirit animal, and the rest is just looking funny.
But those are great options, though. If we're gonna go for mundane creatures, I would say a wolf, because I have always loved the pack mentality, and that's kind of how I treat my friends and family. If we're gonna go for the mythological, definitely a phoenix.
A phoenix, cool. Why a phoenix?
So don't judge me. But the X-Men had a really huge impact on me growing up, and I always thought the Phoenix Saga was like the best one, because I was like, oh, Jean Grey is useful for once. Wow.
Wow. Zing.
You know, not trying to be but so salty towards, you know, animated Jean Grey, but and I always, it just kind of stuck, and I always liked the iconography and the, you know, the history and the mythology surrounding the Phoenix.
That is a wonderful answer, I think. So I have a question, if I may.
Absolutely.
So I heard you mention in the kind of, I don't know, maybe somewhere in the middle, when they were going to go on their challenge with the second lady, that they were not allowed to use their magic, only their powers, or vice versa.
Yeah, so you had it right the first time.
Okay. And so what is the difference in your world between magic and powers?
So while both are definitely extraordinary, magic is a witch's ability to exert a level of control over the reality. So a witch will have to know exactly what they want to do with the magic. So if I looked at your arm and said break, and it attempts to break your arm, I have to know, how is it does a bone in the arm break?
Okay.
Whereas their powers is a naturally occurring phenomenon. They can do this just without having to know exactly how it works per se. So for instance, a running gag is that Xavier sneezes fire, because it's an expression of his powers, but he's not knowing how to control it. He's not knowing how to, you know, set it off, so to speak. You know, and gradually they do learn that control, but while their powers are more elemental based, their magic is more utilitarian. Their magic is used to make certain phenomena happen under their control, while their powers is more of a naturally occurring ability that they have.
So building on that, does that mean that anybody in this world paradigm could hypothetically learn magic, or do you have to also have powers in order to be the type of person that can learn magic?
So magic is a genetic trait. You have to be born into the ability to cast. You know, that's actually what sets Soraya aside, is that she is queen of the vampires, but she started off as a witch. So she started off with the genetic ability to cast magic. So despite her being changed into a vampire, she still has the ability to cast magic because she was born into it. Now, there are other creatures other than witches who have the ability to cast. we just haven't seen them yet, and anything else would be spoilers.
That's perfectly acceptable. Okay, so this is a good one. If you had to do something differently as a child or teenager to become a better writer as an adult, what would you do?
Have more faith in my writing. Because there was a period of time, because the 20s are always a very interesting part of your life. Anybody in their 20s or past their 20s will let you know. But I allowed corporate America to fool me into thinking that my writing wasn't good enough to live off of. And I gave up on it for many, many, many years. And it wasn't until very recently, towards my late 20s, that I realized, oh, that is not the case, because writing is what makes me happy. I am a good storyteller. Just because everybody doesn't like me doesn't necessarily mean that my story is bad. And so if I could change anything, it would be to make sure that I never had that moment of doubting my writing ability.
Yeah, that's a very big one to struggle with, especially, I think especially with, it's one of the reasons I particularly like indie, just the whole indie genre, is because I feel like there are so many gems that are out there that just don't get seen because of exactly what you say, corporate landia, and most people only see what is on the Barnes and Noble bookshelf, as it were, right? So do you guys have Barnes and Noble in DC? I don't know how big
we do. We do. Yeah, no, DC is a fairly metropolitan area, so like all the hoity-toity fancy schmancy we have at least nearby.
Fair enough. Yeah. So what made you decide, is it the experience with corporate America that made you decide, with big publishing, that you did not want to actually do that and you wanted to go with indie publishing?
110%. And, I still threw my hat in there because I had small aspirations of maybe I'll be that one indie author that the corporations will like. And then I realized that the constant complaints, your characters aren't straight enough, they're not white enough, they're not likable, they don't represent a realistic audience, so to speak, which I was like, oh, I see. You're still stuck in the 50s mindset, and you have yet to come out of that. Got it. I'll leave you there.
I'm just like, oh, those characters seemed pretty. It was one of my first thoughts, actually, when you started reading, that I found the dialogue and the interactions between them to be very modern. Bro, right?
And granted, a lot of that is based off of my own current lexicon, but these are still very real people, because I've gone through the ringer more than thrice over just to make sure that these are as human as I can possibly make them. And to have a publisher or an agent look at me and say, well, they're not really believable, that is a difference of opinion that we're having. See it. So that's why I chose indie.
That just sounds so frustrating. I have one little children's book myself that I also did indie publishing. One of the good things about it, though, and so I wonder if you do this currently, or do you have plans to do it as you go forward, speaking of indie stuff, because one of the good things about being an indie author is that you can maintain a much closer relationship to your audience, because you're more directly connected to them. They are following you specifically because they like you and your work and the other things. So do you have plans to do something like create a Patreon, or as you grow, because this is your first book, so I assume you're gonna have more. There's
7 more where this came from. It's gonna be 8-book series, so yeah, my next decade is scheduled.
It sounded like it was a series, gonna be a series. So
absolutely.
But do you have plans to do something like that, so that eventually your fans can really kind of get the cool experience of interacting with you as the writer?
I have definitely thought about it, and I'm continuing to think about it. For me, I tend to look at Patreon as the type of thing that you have when you have the ability to make semi-consistent updates, making sure that you can give them a chapter here, a smattering there, whatnot. And I need to verify, because I just recently gotten settled into a new job. So I need to verify for myself that I can handle the workload while simultaneously figuring out a proper and consistent writing schedule. Because what I'm not going to do is have people pay me money and then a month goes by and I have no update, because, you know, that's stuff that only, yeah, right. Because life, you know, and, you know, there are certain, you know, very prevalent artists and content creators that can get away with that, but they're also like YouTubers with like 1 million subscribers. When you have that many, you can afford to do a video a month.
The dreams of a small fairy.
Right. You'll get there. You'll get there, I promise.
I'm basically 998,000 people. I don't know. I'm so close.
It's so close, right? Just you know, you blink and it'll be there. You know,
that's how it happens, right? It'll just be one thing that goes viral, and pretty soon, pow!
Right. You
Maybe
know,
it'll be you.
Hey, if I can bring that type of blessing into your life, by all means, let the old God smile on me and let's have this happen. You know, I
will share the love. I promise. If that magic suddenly happens,
I appreciate it. Ah, thank you.
So here's a cool question. Let's see. Do you hide any secrets in your books that only a few people will find?
I hide a lot of nerd references in my book, specifically comic references, because comics is kind of one of the bigger tiers that I'm under. So if you have a mind for comics, you might pick up on a couple of things that I reference.
That I love Easter eggs, so that's
absolutely
one of the fun ones. Now, what would you advise, I think, to other people if they were looking to write their own book, up and coming authors, if you will? What kind of advice would you give to a new one?
Believe in yourself, first and foremost. I think a lack of confidence is one of the biggest killers of up and coming writers that we see, because they'll hit a snag or they'll hit a small roadblock, and all of a sudden it's the apocalypse. It just, oh, I'm not good enough, forget it, I won't do it. And I can't express how much you have to kind of come out of that, and you know, take your time with it. You know, especially if it's like depression caused or anxiety caused or whatnot. I'm not going to sit here and you can snap your fingers and make it go away. I suffer from that, but if you take the time and the effort to try to work through all of that, you will thank yourself, because your writing is good. Even if it's bad right now, it is still good in the way that it's yours, that it's creative, and that it is a work in progress. So have that confidence in yourself that you are an artist and that you are valid. Yeah, no matter where you have begun and where you are beginning, it's, as long as you have begun, it is more than zero. That's what we say around here a lot, actually, for many of the things we do, because I know the struggle of being an artist and how the world makes you just sometimes feel so down about everything. But what's the little fish that says just keep swimming? Dory. Yes, it's like that. Just keep writing. Yeah, no matter what it is, just keep writing, and eventually it will be there. What are some of the ways that you feel, or techniques, or maybe lesson is the wrong word. I'm thinking more like exercise that you do or have learned that you feel have helped you improve what you do as a writer? So with me taking on an ensemble cast, that was definitely a challenge for me. Having 8 main characters, that's a lot to balance. So one thing I like to do is I will grab a prompt from one of my fellow author Twitter folks, and I'll say, okay, cool. I'm going to take this prompt and I'm going to apply it to each of the characters to make sure that I can get into the right headspace of them. I get into their voice. I understand what it is about their motivations and how that would affect their actions. And I think that goes a really long way into helping character development, because as a lot of people will attest to, when you have an ensemble cast and as you progress down a long thread of books and whatnot, sometimes the characterization can be a little wonky. You ever watched a TV show that's gone on for a while and you're like, this character is not the same that they were in like the first season.
Or even the last episode. What jumped the shark there?
Right, and you're just like, this progression did not make sense. And it's because, you can lose a lot of that when you're trying to keep that cohesion. So definitely taking those writing prompts, and even if they're just side little small projects that you're doing while you're bored in a meeting, they help. They really help.
It's funny because you said that, and then suddenly I had sort of this visual image pop in my head of the types of memes that you see out. I have hair that is wisping in my face. Like you.
I noticed it. I was like, it is determined.
So.
Beautiful, darling. Beautiful.
Right? No. So, where was I even? Yes, it made me think of those things that you see, on Bookface, where it'll be a diagram of like 9 squares, and then in each one of them it will be like, coffee in the morning,
yep.
And it has like these little, loves coffee, cats, books, and will eat you if you try to talk to them before coffee, yep. And then the next one is like, tea or whatever. And so I kind of was like, oh, like it made me think about because by prompt, I assume you mean something like you'll take maybe a question like, we're going to go for a ride on a merry-go-round. Want to come? And then in your head, or however you do that exercise, you imagine what will this character's response be to let's go ride on the merry-go-round, right? Is that just going to be beneath them? Is it going to be, okay, but let's do it naked,
right? Right. I mean, and that's absolutely spot on. And a lot of people tend to like, it's for fun, but they never really view it as a very serious method of characterization. And it actually is, and it's a fun way of doing it too, because you can get some really random prompts. Like the last one I did was, your character just came home to see their mother dead. What do they do? And I'm just like, like 2 of my characters are directly responsible for their mother's death. Okay, so it's small things like that. Let's talk morals. Oof.
Right. So there was one question that kind of that my brain went to, and now I can't remember it. So I see though. Oh, I just noticed the time. I know, right? Like it will come to me in probably a couple of minutes. But we're getting to the point in time where it is the giveaway time. So if you are out there watching from home, now is the point in time in our show where you put your name into the comments, and we will add you to the wheel. And then what are we doing here? Is this the choice for the book Rising, a drawing for your book Rising? Is it a physical copy or an e-copy, or is it the winner's choice?
It will be the winner's choice.
Winner's choice. Okay. The cool thing about a physical copy is that you can sign it and personalize it to them. The cool thing about an e-copy is that it is an e-copy and therefore completely COVID safe, right?
Exactly. And I definitely understand whichever one you guys decide, be my guest.
So I am going to go, so also because all of our Patreon patrons get an automatic entry into every drawing that we do. So I am going to go pull their names right now and put them into, yes, now is the time. Enter your name.
Do it, peoples.
Yes, okay. Yes, right? Enter the names. Yeah, I'm going to share actually our screen really fast so folks can see. Let's see. Where is my wheel? Here we go. And I know, right? This is always a fun little part. So
I do this is awesome.
Doing the drawing. So I think I saw Jack there in the comments. Okay. Now is the point in time that you put your name in the comments and we enter you onto this list, and we then spin the wheel and the winner will get a free copy of Lamonte's book. Okay. I feel like I'm typing slow today. I don't have my timer here. I normally have a little timer on the other show where I give people, you know, like a minute and a half or something with the sand timer, but that is not here today. So I was like, you were going to say something. I feel like I just cut you off.
No, it's okay. I was just saying that, like, this is, you know, a really interesting thing. And also, guys, take advantage of it. Free book. Come on.
Right? Absolutely. So, well, we have over 50 people here, easy, going for this, because it, of course, includes all of our Patreon patrons as well for the extra entry. So the wheel will select 50 random names from this list here, actually.
Okay.
And then we'll go ahead. I see no other comments. Oh, wait, I do. I see Newt. Hold on. Okay. Okay.
I like that name, Newt. I like it.
Yeah, that's Newton, and also from Harry Potter. Isn't that the name of the American Harry Potter? That captured all the funky little creatures.
Yeah, boss. Is that his name? Me and Harry Potter have had a kind of a bit of a love-hate relationship.
Uh-oh. Yes, well, that's it's like books, yay, author,
not so much. Not so much.
And that creates, it's just kind of an Orson Scott Card incident.
Thank you. And a lot of people don't know. And I'm just like, you know, because somebody asked me, they're like, hey, do you like him? And I was like, I have a personal stake in not liking him and supporting him. So, no.
So here we go. Here is our wheel. We shall spin it.
Woo!
Wheel of names. Spin, spin, spin. Tell us who. Keith DeCandido.
Nice.
All right. That is nice. He was an author who was on the show a while back and has been a supporter of the channel. And so that's pretty cool. So now your work is going to be sent to him.
Awesome. Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's all you.
I was just going to say, hey, Keith, I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. We do have one bonus. It's a cut scene from the book that Lamonte has sent. It is going to be published on our Patreon here after the show today. So if you are interested in reading that, you can hop over to our Patreon, and for little as $1 a month, you can get access to all of our patron, okay, maybe not all, the vast majority of our patron content. I do have some content that is like for really, really high level patrons, but most of it is for open to patrons of all levels. So
gotcha.
But yes, so you will get access to that. And is there anything that you would like to say to everybody before we tune out today?
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please support, because we need to lift up each other, especially our indie artists and whatnot. You know, support where you can, hit the Patreons where you can. We love you. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe.
Yes, and all of the links are going in the ticker and in the low bar for you guys. After the show, you can click on them at any time. These videos will not come down. They'll stay up on Facebook and on YouTube. And should you read the book, please leave a review. It's so important to indie authors. So we are on Friday. That means that Sunday is our next show. It is Handmade Home Shopping, and we have a pretty good looking lineup this week. So I hope to see you guys there at 4 p.m. Pacific. And with that said, good night, everybody, and good afternoon, everybody. And we will see you on Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.